Today, we're going to talk about a single legal decision. A decision about one life-saving drug that honestly sent massive shockwaves through the entire global pharmaceutical industry. It's a really fascinating story about innovation, patents, and a ruling that completely changed how we talk about access to medicine.
I know. That's a really heavy question to start with, but it's absolutely at the heart of what we're breaking down today. When a cure for a disease actually exists, but it's just completely out of reach for millions of people, you have to ask that question, right? What is a life really worth?
Okay, so the story really kicks off with this number, 1,20,000 rupees. I mean, just think about that. That was the monthly cost for one breakthrough cancer drug. Seriously, just let that sink in for a second.
And just so we're all on the same page, this wasn't some one-time payment. No way. This was the cost every single month for one patient who's battling a specific type of blood cancer. I mean, for most people, a price tag like that doesn't just mean you're going into debt. It means the treatment is just impossible, off the cable, period.
So, yeah, a price that high, it's bound to cause some serious conflict, right? And it did. This is what set the stage for a huge legal battle, one that basically put the whole idea of a drug patent on trial.
All right, so what exactly is a drug patent? Well, think of it like a deal, kind of. A company pours millions, sometimes billions, into research and development to create a new drug. In return for that massive risk and investment, they get an exclusive right, a monopoly, to sell it for a certain number of years. And the idea is that this allows them to make their money back and, fund the next big breakthrough.
Okay, now here's where the story gets really interesting. The original patent on this cancer drug, it was about to expire. So what does the big multinational corporation do? They apply for a new patent in India. But here's the kicker. It wasn't for a totally new drug. It was for a slightly tweaked version of the one they already had. And this strategy actually has a name. It's called evergreening. And it's pretty controversial. It's basically a tactic where companies make these tiny little changes to a drug that already exists. Maybe they make it absorb into your body a little bit better or something, and then they try to file for a whole new patent. It's like they're trying to hit the reset button on their monopoly clock.
So the way this works is pretty straightforward. You've got the original patented drug. Then, right before that patent is about to run out, the company makes some small, minor change. They take that little modification and use it to file for a brand new patent. And if they get it, boom! Their exclusive control of the market continues, and all those cheaper, generic versions, they're kept on the sidelines for years and years longer.
And this, right here, is the absolute heart of the debate. You've got two very different perspectives. On one side, you have the drug companies saying, hey, extending patents rewards us for continuously improving our products, and it protects the massive R&D investment we need to make. But then, on the other side, you have public health advocates saying, wait a minute, this evergreening is just a trick to block affordable generic drugs from reaching people who desperately need them. Tiny tweaks shouldn't earn you a whole new monopoly.
So this whole conflict, this whole massive debate, it all came to a head in India. And that's where the Patent Office, and later the Supreme Court, came down with a clear, decisive answer: no. And let me tell you, that no was heard all around the world. And their reasoning for it? It was so simple, so direct. The Patent Office basically said, look, this modified drug you're proposing, it's not a new invention. It's not some breakthrough. In their own words, it was just a new form of a known substance.
So you might be wondering, how could India make such a bold move? What gives them the power to do that? Well, the answer is in a really specific and pretty unique part of their patent law. It's called Section 3D.
In this law, Section 3D, it sets the bar incredibly high. It basically says you can't just get a new patent for a minor tweak on an old drug. No. You have to actually prove that your new version is significantly better at treating the disease. It needs to have a major boost in what they call therapeutic efficacy. It has to actually work better for the patient. And that's the bottom line, right? The company's changes, sure, they might have been clever from a chemistry standpoint, but they couldn't prove it was a real medical improvement for patients. It just didn't pass that super strict test in Section 3D. And because of that, the patent was rejected, flat out.
And the second that patent was denied, wow, everything changed. It was like a dam breaking. The decision just unleashed this huge wave of competition. And the impact it had on patients was direct, it was immediate, and honestly, it was staggering.
You just have to look at the numbers here. They tell the entire story. Remember that original price? 1,20,000 rupees a month? Well, once that door was kicked open for generic drugs to come in, the price just plummeted, down to just 8,000 rupees. Let that sink in. That's a 97% price drop. 97%. A life-saving medicine went from being a pipe dream for most people to suddenly being accessible for tens of thousands of new patients. It's like it happened overnight.
So, by blocking that evergreening patent, the court basically gave a huge green light to India's generic drug industry, which is a powerhouse. Suddenly, all these different companies could legally start making and selling their own versions of the drug. And that's what competition does, right? It drove the price way, way down.
But listen, this story is so much bigger than just India. This wasn't just a victory for patients there. This one case set a huge precedent, a model, really, for public health advocates all across the globe. You know, it's wild to think about the timeline here. This full journey was decades in the making. It started with the drug being invented back in the 90s, then came the big legal fight in the 2000s, and then, finally, that game-changing decision in 2013 that just blew the doors open for affordable access.
And the ripple effects from this, they were absolutely massive. It created a legal blueprint that other developing countries could look at and say, hey, we can do that too. It sent a shockwave through the system, challenging this whole idea of evergreening. But most importantly, it was a real signal of a shift in priorities, putting patient access ahead of everything else. It really was hailed around the world as this landmark victory. And that's really what the public health advocates were saying at the time. This whole thing was about so much more than just one drug or one company. It felt like a real step towards a world where life-saving medicine is actually available to the people who need it the most, not just the people who happen to be able to afford it.
Ultimately, what this case did was pour gasoline on a fire that was already burning. You know, this global debate about a really tough balancing act. How do we, as a global community, reward and encourage the amazing innovation that gives us these miracle drugs, while at the same time making sure those drugs actually do what they're supposed to do, which is save people's lives? And that leaves us with the big, critical question, doesn't it? This constant tug of war between innovation and access. It's honestly one of the biggest challenges of our time. This case in India showed us what can happen when the scales tip towards access. But that debate, it is far, far from over. So I'll leave you with this. Can we actually build a system that does both? Can we have it all?